Hey guys, it's COREROSS, and today we're continuing our series looking at Siege X and its features and whether they were a success or failure. Last time we looked at modernized maps. Today we're looking at free-to-play. So first of all, I think this is going to be hard to get a really good answer to because PC and console are very different when it comes to free-to-play and the positives and negatives of both. However, I think we can get a general answer right away, and that is, of course, going free to play, you'd probably hope to see a boost in player numbers. And that has certainly not happened. You don't even need to bring up Steam numbers to check. You know if you're a player, or even if you are not playing Siege right now, that the consensus is that Siege is not in a particularly brilliant place at the moment. And especially with Siege X's launch, it was in a very, very bad place. But certainly, let's bring in those numbers from Steam and have a look. So first of all, the big takeaway for me is if we look at the all-time graph, we can see that there was a bigger boost in players in 2024. And that was with the release of Operation Deadly Omen and the inclusion of Deamus, a playable bad guy in Rainbow Six Siege. And I also remember people were very hyped about Siege back then, thinking it was back and it was in full force. And I do remember people being really positive about the roadmap as well. I didn't think there was that much on the roadmap, but people came away from it really happy. And it is certainly interesting to look back at this season and see how it was able to hype up the player base. It was able to get players who had left to return, and overall, it didn't have lasting success. But it shows that just a season with an interesting dynamic of a bad guy being added into the game really was able to build more hype than everything they included with Siege X. Whereas if we switch to the year graph on the Siege numbers, you'll notice that there isn't really even an indication that Siege X was ever released, as the actual graph stays relatively flat with a downward curve, painting a potentially bad picture for all of Siege X's features. But let's talk about free-to-play, and let's now drill down to the two main platforms, PC and console. Now, of course, on PC, I think free-to-play is mostly seen as a negative, because it means that rage cheaters can come in and they can start to abuse the system by just getting free account after free account after free account. And then until recently, if you went into a team deathmatch on PC, you would find them to be mostly filled with bots, simply leveling up free accounts to the level requirements for ranked. And then of course, those free accounts will be sold. They will then be upgraded to premium, and then the cheaters will jump into rank, and of course they'll cheat away, either to potentially boost players for money, or just of course to troll players. And of course this means there is still a very healthy cheater economy out there that is thriving in this free-to-play era of Rainbow Six Siege. And basically the simple truth here is that free-to-play on PC has not been a benefit to Siege. But on console, it is a different matter. Although you can still jump into deathmatch and find console bots leveling up for ranked access as well. So there's still a very healthy cheater economy on console as well. And considering you need a Ubisoft account, console account, and the bot has to be playing on a console as well, the requirements for this resource-wise are a lot more complex than the ones on PC. So it means there's people willing to buy these accounts and use them, that there's an economy that is making a profit from this. That is mental. But unlike PC, there is a major bonus to the game going free to play, which is you do not require Game Pass Core or PlayStation Plus to access online features, which is really good because in today's world, everything is turning into a subscription. Everything is going constantly up in price, sometimes significantly in price when it comes to these subscriptions. So having the option to still play Siege online without paying the subscription is a massive benefit. And potentially the savings for the player is only going to increase over time. However, I think this benefit has been squandered by Sony and Microsoft, because they both decided, and they are the ones that make the decision on this feature, that the game is essentially split into two when it comes to free to play, so that your quick match, your unranked, your dual front, you can play them all free without having to have any subscription from the console providers. However, they decided that the playlists for ranked and Siege Cup, the stuff that's included with Siege X Premium, those have to have the subscription. So you jump into the game and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to buy the premium version of Siege, I'm going to play ranked now. Then you go and buy it, but you can't, because you now need to go get a subscription as well to play it. And it's like, what the heck is going on with this extra layer of confusion that is decided by simply Sony and Microsoft, and why they decided to split the game down the middle like this. Whereas Ubisoft's choice of making a premium version and putting the competitive playlist behind that premium version is very simple. It's just a slight hurdle for cheaters. And as a result, it's a good choice by Ubisoft to do. And if it wasn't for cheaters, there wouldn't be a premium version of Siege X, and if there was, it would be purely cosmetic only. But then the console providers have gone, hey, we can make some extra money here by making it so that there has to be a split down the middle of the game with the competitive modes, even if you pay for them, not being accessible without having the subscription, which is dumb, and it's just a money grabbing move by Sony and Microsoft. And I don't know if there's any other game that is free to play that has this same setup of having it split down the middle by the console providers. So unfortunately, what that means for consoles is you do have a benefit, but it's not as big as it could be. But if you're a player who doesn't play Ranked and doesn't play Siege Cup, then you're golden. You can stop the subscription and you could potentially just play Siege for the next 10 years and save a huge amount of money when it comes to your gaming experience. But of course, if you have a friend group that likes to play Ranked, maybe they want to play a Siege Cup from time to time, then the problem is, of course, you need to buy the premium version of Siege. Then you also need to buy the subscription service, and then you can go play a playlist that is slightly different from the normal one that you've been playing. And I think that kind of brings us to the overall conclusion here, where this is another Siege X feature that I look at and I'm thinking it's not quite been done correctly. It's almost there, but also I look at PC and I think there's not really any benefits for the PC players. Of course, maybe in the long term, we'll slowly see the player numbers go up as they activate free accounts, jump in, maybe some get hooked on the game and stick around, and as a result, you get a bigger player base. And usually a bigger player base is better, not always the case. So smaller player bases sometimes are nicer because you have just less cheers. Whereas if you have a big popular player base, you're going to have more cheers. But if you have more players, you have a much bigger skill range to go for, and as a result, that can be a much better experience. Whereas if the player base shrinks, it's just left with the hardcore, and then that means any new player that joins the game is going to get destroyed and go, I'm not playing this anymore, as there's just no new players for them to play against. So it might help make a healthier player base in the long term, but right now I don't think we're seeing the benefits of free-to-play on PC. Whereas on console, there is a benefit to the free-to-play, but it only works if you're sticking to Quick Match, Unranked, and Dual Front. If you're wanting to play Ranked and Siege Cup, then you're screwed. You're still having to pay a subscription. So I do think there's a big benefit on console, but it's been scuppered a little bit by Sony and Microsoft and just their greed, right? That's all that slowed that down. So if that was to be fixed, I think that would be really successful on console. So overall, right now, I have to say that free-to-play has been a failure on both platforms, more so on PC, less so on console. The console version can be fixed, but I don't know if it will be. And then the conclusion here can change. So if there is an influx of free-to-play players in the future, that results in a healthier player base where we have the hardcore, we have the casual, we have the new players, and we end up with a much more interesting player base than we currently have, that would mean it was successful. But that would also probably need to come with an update that has something that brings those players in. And unless it's something of the scale of like Outbreak or something, I just don't see that ever happening in the future. So it may never change the conclusion here that free to play, I think for the most part right now, has been a failure.